right, guys, how's it going? Today we're sitting down with special guest Tom Chatalbash from Chatalbash
How's it
Reviews.
going, guys?
Been doing with YouTube's most reliable movie critic. Been doing this for
We
what,
try.
10 years now? 10 years?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think actually. Hold on, 10, 11. This will be my 12th year on Halloween.
Wow. I knew it was up of a decade. So that's pretty awesome.
I've been here a minute.
So that's pretty cool. And today we're doing a Halloween special. We're talking about Tom's favorite Halloween movie to watch during Halloween movie. Well, I don't know, is it your scariest movie, your favorite horror movie, or just something you watch every Halloween season?
I don't think it's the scariest movie,
Right.
but I think it's scary in a very different way that I really like. Because I'm the kind of person, I love horror movies, but I'm not the kind of person that I need jump scares. I'm more so like psychological horror movies that are more creepy and that mess with your mind more so than like jump out at you and give you all these kind of silly jump scares.
Right. So the movie's called The Strangers. It came out in 2008. Has Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman. Basically, it says it's based on true events, which is very loosely used. But basically, it's based on two pieces of trivia. One is that it's based on the Manson family, like Sharon Tate. Anyone who's ever seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, they kind of do like a mockery version of that, which is the funniest thing ever. And then the other bit is the writer-director talks about how when he was a kid, somebody came to his door and knocked on the door and said they were looking for somebody who didn't live there, and it just freaked him out ever since. So those are basically the two origin pieces for this movie. I don't know if you know anything about behind the movie. Because I know it's I've just seen it. I think I saw it maybe once back when it came out forever ago. But that's pretty much what I found on like IMDb basically. And it's creepy, man. It's very eerie. It's I watched it back to back with the sequel that came out exactly 10 years later, 2018, Pray at Night. And you really feel that shift in the way horror has gone from 2008 to 2018. And it's not a positive for me. Have you seen the sequel, Pray at Night?
No, I still haven't because I've heard nothing but like bad things, and I love the original so much, and I don't know, I just feel like it's just gonna ultimately let me down. So I've still been hesitant to watch it. And from what you've told me, it seems like I've kind of made the right call. So I think I might stick to those. I feel maybe one of these days, if I really can't find something to watch, maybe I'll give it a chance. But as for now, I'm sticking with my guns, my original.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I will say this much: if I had to compare them to the two of them, it does feel a little beat by beat because it was 10 years later. So it does feel like they're doing the same thing over again. In the sequel, it has four people. It's a family, and you could argue that maybe they have like a ritual and they're doing it beat for beat, but it does feel more like fan service. Like, remember, we're doing that again. Like, was Tamara home? Is all that stuff. But it does feel more like an 80s slasher movie, and it has like a lot of poppy music, like Tiffany and like 80s people that like pop music. So, and it's more like unrealistic, like as far as like like in Scream, like she's running up the stairs instead of out the front door, like that kind of dumb shit that's just was so incredibly frustrating to watch. But the first one is just a creepy atmospheric type of film that just kind of seeps in and you're in. The setup, because I watched this like a week ago. The setup basically is Liv Tyler and the boyfriend. They're at a wedding, and they're clearly upset. And we get this in a flashback. Basically, he tried to propose at a wedding, and she said no. And then this is like the aftermath of trying to, I guess, just what do you do in that situation? Which I gotta say is a terrible thing to do. You never propose at somebody else's wedding. I don't care if it's outside in the park, especially like
Step one.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's very picky. It's almost like, hey, we should do that. We should have a car like that. We should get married. We should. It feels very like I don't know, disingenuous, on the fly. And this is just my interpretation. I know you've seen it more than I have, but it felt like this guy was trying to like tie her down. She didn't seem like she was on the same page as him. It felt like he was like she was kind of more absent-minded or distant. And he was like, well, maybe if I propose, that will help the situation. And it's like, you're not reading the room.
It just seems like a very imbalanced relationship where like she definitely really liked him, but he seemed to be like on a whole different level where he was ready for marriage, where she's like, nah, I'm still ready to, take it slow. I'm not there yet. And then it kind of just goes from there to being basically the worst night of their lives. So
Right.
I think it's actually a great setup to already show you that they were already having a terrible night. And then it became way worse than either of them could have possibly imagined, but also in a great way, it like brings them together and makes them realize how important they are to one another, especially on her end. So in like a weird, messed up way, it kind of brings them together and kind of makes the relationship stronger, even though it takes a turn for the worse.
It does. They go back, and basically it's very awkward. And they do a good job of not telling you what happened. So you're kind of leaning in, going like, what's going on? Why are they upset? He has like all these
Right.
rose petals laid out, the record's playing. And like he's like eating like a gallon of ice cream. I love that. He's like it's like a bad breakup. And I think she's like, well, I want cigarettes. I'm all out. So he goes out for a pack of smokes to buy for her. She's alone.
Right.
And that's like when the door knock comes. Oh no, wait, he is home for that. He is home for that.
Yeah.
And you get Dollface, who's like, is Tamara home? And they're like, no, we don't know any Tamara.
Yep.
And then they fuck off. He goes to get the cigarettes, and that's pretty much where everything elevates. Like where the sackhead guy starts like looking. That is the creepiest scene in the whole movie. When they just show Liv Tyler doing her thing, and you kind of like look around, and you just see him chilling in the background. There's
Yeah, it's
no
one of
jump
the
scare
creepiest shots.
music.
No, it's absolutely amazing. I
It's in
love
the
it.
trailer.
I think it's one of
It might be like, I know that was like a big staple in The Babadook, which I think is a great film. A lot of that in the background, no musical cues. But 2008, that might have been one of the earlier movies to do that. It's a little more commonplace now, but you think of like that genre, like you don't see a lot of that. That's probably my favorite type of horror, because there's nothing worse than a jump scare horror movie, that especially when it's like it's just your friend. It's like I hate you movie.
Or like you close the fridge and someone's there like, oh, hi, honey. It's like,
Right,
no, fuck
right.
you. Like, no, I hate that scare. Or the stupid cat that runs across the stairs. Like, no, I don't need that shit.
Yeah. It just feels like low budget and like, I don't know, uninspired, I
No,
guess.
it's cheap. It's just a cheap
Yeah,
scare.
it's
And
just
there's
cheap.
nothing worse
It
than a cheap
doesn't.
scare.
Um, so basically, where does it go from there? He calls his friend. He had called his friend, which is Dennis from
Yeah,
It's Always
I
Sunny.
forgot that. I didn't even remember that he was in the movie.
Yeah. Oh, he's young. He's like babyface, because this is probably like
He's
season one or
super young.
two. This is like
Yeah.
2008, and that bothered me too. But movie's got a movie where like who leaves like their wedding reception to go home? Well, I guess if you propose in the parking lot, that might be like a dampering way to do it. But like typically, if I've ever gone to like a destination wedding, I usually like get a room there. I stay there. I stay at usually the reception runs kind of late, but they're like,
Right.
well, let's just go home, and I've got rose
Mm.
petals. And this guy actually leaves the reception too, because he comes to the house to try to, I guess, pick him up early or see if he's okay. I guess.
Yeah.
Movie. And of course that doesn't go well. But that's basically the setup. From there, it's just like a home invasion in a cabin. Um, it's creepy. I mean, it definitely builds and builds. Like that record skipping is just like the most unnerving thing in the whole world. And then you think they're in the house, and he just came back from, I guess, like the cigarettes, and was kind of like whatever.
Right.
Um,
Well, oh, by the way, there's spoilers in this review. This
yeah,
video.
of course, from 2008.
By the way, this movie that's like over 10 years old, we're gonna just like kind of go through the whole thing. So everyone's like, wait a minute, is this just the setup?
Well, I don't think you can really talk about this movie too much without kind of spoiling it, especially for like, 2008. It's like people usually know. They check the tomato meter. They know what's up.
I don't know. I always like people who try to give me shit for like spoiling the movie. It's like, but why would you tell me that? I'm like, the movie was made in 1985. Like you've had years and years to like see this movie. Like, don't give me shit about it.
I'm probably gonna call this video spoiler talk anyway, so it's fine. I'm not worried about it.
We're covering our bases.
So you picked this movie. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your insight into it and your takeaway, because I know I've been talking, but
because I love The Strangers because I feel like it's the kind of horror movie that we really don't get much of anymore, where it's simple, it's like bare bones, it takes a concept that we've seen so many times before, like a home invasion movie, we've seen tons of these, but it makes it unique, where like not only do you have like this great setup with, like we talked about before, like this couple who they're kind of like on the verge of breaking up and they're already having a terrible night. And then this group of 3 psychopaths, comes to their door and kind of just makes their night way worse. And just how it slowly escalates, slowly builds. There's no cheap like jump scares or jump scare music. Like you said, like there's scenes where she's in the kitchen, and all of a sudden in the background you see the guy with the bag head, just lurking in the background, just kind of like fucking with her, just from and she doesn't even know it. Or them like sneaking into the house and stealing little things of them, just to like play with their mind, and then like slowly kind of eliminating all their ways that they could possibly escape, like destroying their car, or kind of breaking into their house when they feel like they're safe. And then with everything with like Dennis, showing up and getting accidentally killed because, they're in the closet and he thinks it's like one of the intruders and ends up killing like one of his best friends. I mean, it's just one of those movies where like it will destroy a person. Like it's the kind of thing where like they started off already. That would be my dog. He probably sees another dog. Yep. Yep. That's, yep. No, yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. Marty. There you go. All right. Sorry about that, everybody. Dogs. What are you going to do? But what I like is that the movie really shows that like when you go through something like that, it like fundamentally changes you.
Right.
And basically warps your whole perspective on like what you thought, like who you thought you were, and then like how one event can kind of change how you see yourself. So like literally after that closet scene, Jesus.
Hey, Marty.
After that, yeah, he's just a little rapscallion. But after that closet scene, you just see their whole relationship change, where it's like, okay, we're not just a couple, we're like trying to survive.
Right.
And I just love how this movie, like, it just takes that simple concept and it just does so much with it, and like just kind of plays with your mind, because I always felt like the best scares are the ones that you imagine in your head, where you have all this tension and suspense and you're waiting for something to happen or for something to pop out at you, and what you're imagining often is more scary than what's actually in the movie. But the movie just kind of plays with that. It just kind of strings along the tension and builds it up and builds it up and builds it up to the point where you're like on the edge of your seat, you're kind of like waiting for something to happen, and then it just kind of culminates in this really kind of almost like anticlimactic way of them basically getting into the house, tying this couple up, and just slowly killing them. But also, I think the best part about the movie is that you're wondering the entire time, why are these people doing this? Like, why are they messing with this couple? Why are they kind of ruining their lives? And she even, the girlfriend at the end of the movie asks, like, why are you doing this to us?
Right.
And like, there's this big silence, and you're like, okay, here we go. They're finally going to reveal their motives. And they literally just, and it's one of the best lines I've ever heard in a horror movie, which is just, because you were home. And that is terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying and genius in its simplicity of, there's nothing more terrifying than a killer that doesn't have like a real motive. Like, you're wondering, like, did this couple like screw over these 3 people somehow? Are they living in like someone's house that like these people used to know, something like that? But no, it's just because they're psychopaths, and this couple happened to be home on this night where they wanted to kill people, and that's horrifying. And I think that this movie just demonstrates beautifully that there's this great kind of artistic simplicity in horror that doesn't really get exploited enough. And I think we need to kind of bring that back. And I love movies like The Strangers, and I love just how simply terrifying it is.
And it kind of reminds me of like that scene in the end of Scream, when Billy is talking about how, like, did we ever find out why Hannibal Lecter likes to eat people? I don't think so. It's a lot scarier when the killer doesn't have a motive. And then he gives a motive, and you're like, ah, shit.
There you go.
He's like, mommy left, and I thought that was, let's talk about that a little bit, because, you're right. The whole middle section is kind of just like building that. But let's talk about the end a little bit, because it does kind of reveal a little bit. Like, for example, when they're leaving, the guy with the sack on his head says to Dollface, like, well, you'll do better next time. You know what I mean? So it made me like think about it. I'm like, do you think these people are related? Like, could she possibly be like his daughter? Are they maybe part of some type of like cult? Or like, how do you think the dynamics between these characters are? I know it's left ambiguous, but what was your, if you had a guess, if you had to fill in the blanks from your interpretation, what was your takeaway of who these characters are?
I mean, I kind of leaned into the mystique of it all. Like
Right.
that was information I didn't really care about. Like I don't need to
Okay.
know if they're father, daughter, or like, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, and we're like, or if they were all just a family, or maybe they're just, a group of three people that are all psychotic and they somehow crossed paths and like this is what they just want to do now. Like I kind of just love that it's not
Ambiguity.
explained. Like that's
Yeah.
yeah, like that's where ambiguity actually works, where it's just like the more you learn about them, the kind of less interesting that they become. And like there's sometimes where ambiguity can be really frustrating, where you want answers and ultimately like the movie's tainted because like you don't understand why anything happened the way it did. But here it's like the more mystery you have, the more terrifying it is. Like you don't know who these people are. You don't know where they've been. They've probably been doing this for a while. They've definitely done it before,
Right.
and they're still kind of like honing their craft, which is also terrifying, where like they're just kind of moving on to their next target. So this is a case of where I thought the mystique was an advantage that the movie had, and I wasn't really concerned about who they were. I mean, it's fun to theorize, but ultimately
Sure.
I was kind of happy that they didn't tell me.
Right. And you also like run the risk of shooting yourself in the foot if it's a bad choice that they make. Do you know what I mean? Like it's definitely not gonna make everybody happy if you pick a very specific thing. So it's always
Right.
scarier when you let the viewer kind of fill it in. I mean, yeah, I guess you can kind of theorize that since it is based on the Manson family, that it could be
Mhm.
something like that per se. Like who's to say? But
Yeah.
do you think there's any chance that Liv Tyler didn't die?
It seemed like I mean, they made it pretty clear she was like kind of alive at the end of the movie, which I thought that's a haunting final shot. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That like you think they're dead, and then this like boy comes in and discovers, her husband, or sorry, her boyfriend dead, and then sees her, and you think, okay, well, she's definitely dead. She's just lying there, lifeless, and then she just screams to life. Horrifying. Like that's like a jump scare that fucking terrified me like the first time I saw it. Like I jumped and I was like, and also like really like affected by it because I was like, now she's still alive somehow and now she has to live with that. That's horrifying. So and
Well,
that's why like they have that story.
and it was a movie that built up so much good faith of not using jump scares that I actually didn't see it coming
Yeah, and
because
that
it
was that
actually
was great.
yeah he's definitely dead, right? I watched this like a week
Oh yeah,
ago. He's definitely dead.
for sure.
It is the most gruesome thing too, where they're just like they don't just like kill you. They're like, I'm gonna
Oh yeah.
stab you,
Ooh,
go get a cup of
brutal.
coffee, come back.
Yeah. Seriously, it was just
um,
like these slow stabs and it was just like you could feel
yeah,
it. Oh, it's rough.
I don't. Oh, yeah, it's good though. I mean, there's really not a lot to go on. Like it's not one of those like mystery box movies. It's very straightforward. You know what it is. It's A to
Mhm.
B. The whole middle is just like incredibly tense because like you
Yeah.
don't know where they are in the house. The
Mhm.
characters kind of make the worst decisions ever. Which is kind of a trope.
Yeah.
And then again, you kind of look at it and go, you know what? I say that I would make smarter decisions, but I'm sure if I was that upset and frantic, I'd probably like be fucking up too.
I mean,
Um,
everyone thinks that if they were in a situation like that, they'd make way smarter decisions. But you have so much adrenaline and so much fear that you're not really thinking clearly. So it's very easy to say when you're like sitting comfortably in your home with like a beer in your hand, like, "Oh yeah, I'd be totally better than they would." So like, if a killer broke into your house and like you're fighting for your life, you're probably not going to make the best choices, but maybe you think a
right.
little bit clearer. You never know. I mean, yeah, like when they're trying to leave in their car and the truck crashes into them, they still could have sped away. They didn't like pop their
I
tires or anything. They could have driven.
I would have ran those rims into the fucking pavement. I would have kept going. Like it would have
Yeah,
like
I
at
don't
that point,
care.
like
I'm
what
not.
do you have to lose? Like why are you I don't know. To me that was kind of
Yeah,
frustrating, but I
yeah,
understand
that
like
or you could have just ran away. You could have just ran
yeah.
away. I mean, all they have are like knives. They don't have guns or anything. So like, just run. That's what you got to do. I don't think they had guns.
No, he had a gun, which was frustrating why
Yeah,
like he didn't do better. Like like dude, you shot
yeah,
your friend and then you like I guess lost your gun. Like all right.
yeah. I mean, they
Um
tried to make it seem like they were in the middle of nowhere, but like they could have found someone.
yeah. Well, they are kind of desolate, right? Like they're not like within screaming range of anything. Like I'm remembering that one scene where I think they're in a garage and they're looking out the window and they see Dollface and she's just standing there alone, which is another really creepy scene. Um,
Right.
it doesn't look like there's anything out there. It looks like they're kind of in a cabin, God knows where.
Mhm.
Which is like one more
Right.
reason where I'm like, I never want to go to a cabin. Like I want to be somewhat near something. Like
Yeah.
that creeps
No,
me
I
the
feel
fuck out.
that. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite scene in this movie? One that kind of like sticks out to you?
Favorite scene. I mean, I would say my favorite shot is definitely the one we were talking about before, where Liv Tyler's just kind of casually in her kitchen, kind of feeling a little creeped out, and then you just see him in the background. I still think that's one of the best shots in any horror movie, especially the way like there's just no music or sound effects or anything. Favorite scene though, I honestly do think my favorite scene might be when like Dennis from It's Always Sunny like walks into the house and he accidentally just like gets his fucking head blown off, where like you're not expecting it because you're thinking he'll make himself known before he like anything happens to him, and it's just a great shock value thing where like this movie just went from like very suspenseful to, oh my god, they're in over their heads, where like now they're just shooting at anything. Like it just shows how desperate they are, and it kind of just like ramps up the tension and suspense, and it shows you how terrifying this group of three people are, where they don't even have to do anything. They weren't even there. They were just kind of like maybe in the house working outside, and they're still terrorizing this couple by like not even doing anything. So I love the power of that scene.
And to me, my interpretation was different, and I don't know if it's because I've seen this movie like a million years ago, or because I've seen other similar movies where I'm like, okay, he's got a gun, but if I know anything, it's not going to be helpful. And I know this guy's coming in. I'm like, oh shit, I bet he shoots him, and I'm like, that'll really, and then I'm thinking, please don't shoot him, please don't shoot him, and then he blows his fucking head off, and I'm like, oh, dude.
Yep.
And then I'm yelling at the characters. I'm like, dig in his pockets. Maybe he has like a phone or car keys, and I'm like, no, they're just running around in typical fashion. Yeah, really good movie. Good recommend. I would highly recommend it. I probably wouldn't. Well, no, I would. I would recommend the sequel. Don't pay for it, but if you can find it on streaming, if it's on Netflix one day, if it pops up on your queue, it's an interesting watch to see. Like, is it?
I'm pretty sure it's on Amazon. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen it on Amazon.
I think you're right. I think I did watch it on Prime. Yeah. There's too many streaming services, but I think you're right. It is on Prime.
Yeah.
The first
Apple
one.
TV, Netflix, Hulu, it's on one of these things.
I don't think the first one is on anything because I looked for that first.
Because it's good.
Yeah, because it's good.
all the shitty sequels get dumped on all these streaming services. We never get the good ones.
If you had to recommend a secondary, like a backup movie, what would you recommend for like the Halloween season?
Like horror movie wise?
Yeah, like anything like the Halloween season that you're really into. Deep cuts with Tom Chatalbash.
Some good ones. I mean, I have so many favorites. I mean, I actually really enjoy like the second and third Purge movies. I think they're really fun to watch.
Okay.
I've been watching those recently. I love those. I love the Scream movies, of course. Those are a blast to watch in Halloween time. I actually really like the Goosebumps movie that came out like maybe like 4 or 5 years ago with Jack Black. I don't know. I just love that movie. It like taps into like what I loved about the books, and Jack Black's perfect in that movie, and it's like really fun. I think creepy. Also Insidious. That's a great one. Like especially the first two movies, really scary, really fun horror movies. Also The Crazies, which was like a remake of an old horror movie that had Timothy Olyphant in it.
Yeah. Timothy Olyphant.
Super underrated horror movie. Really scary and like very, very eerie. Definitely recommend that too. And there's just there's so many other good ones. What am I missing? I definitely feel like I'm missing some. Oh, Beetlejuice. You can't forget Beetlejuice. So Great Nightmare Before Christmas. Obviously, Hocus Pocus. I mean, there's tons I could recommend. How about you?
I was just watching Evil Dead 1 and 2, which is interesting because Evil Dead 1 is on Netflix and Evil Dead 2 is on Hulu because they actually switched studios and they don't own the rights to the first movie. So if you ever watch Evil Dead Part 2, they're rehashing like the last 10 minutes of the movie, and you're like, why did he go back to the cabin? They didn't actually own the rights to the first movie when they made the sequel. But Beetlejuice made me think of it like this is way, anybody who loves Beetlejuice, this is way elevated above Beetlejuice as far as like practical effects, campy goofiness. Like it's just that movie just fucking slaps for me. So I like those a lot. I kind of want to get the double steelbook. It looks pretty
Also Sleepy Hollow. I love that.
That's a good one.
Tim Burton. I love that. I think that's on Netflix right now. It's such a fun throwback horror movie. You get to see Christopher Walken be the headless horseman. I mean, it's
he's like barely in it, but he steals that. It's like Pulp Fiction. He's only in like 1 or 2 scenes, but he fucking rocks it. Yeah,
great. So good.
I've been binging a lot of Halloween movies. I think what did I watch? I watched The Addams Family. I watched Well, which I haven't seen in like forever because I guess I wrote it off as like, oh, this is a dumb kids movie. Probably Christina Ricci's like best movie. Like she peaked
Yeah.
at being snarky asshole, and it's
Yeah,
great.
she was also in Sleepy Hollow. So there
Sleepy
you go.
Hollow. See, exactly.
Yeah.
I watched John Carpenter's The Thing last night, which is
Oh, so
a
good.
great classic. I've been trying to watch more practical effect horror movies because I just watched The Witches. I watched both of them back to back, and I'm looking at all the remakes that are coming out. Because I did a couple of these side by side videos. Like one was The Witches and one was The Craft. And if you look at the trailers for the new movies, the new remakes, first of all, it makes me just want to go look up the original one because it's probably way back, probably from the 90s. But they rely so heavily on these like CGI effects, and it's like I hate this so much. I hate it. It's like I'm watching. Did you see that movie, The Witches, the HBO Max?
Yeah.
What you did?
No, I didn't see the new one. I saw the old one as a kid, but like the practical effects as a kid scared the shit out of me because it was just like. So I'm like, this is a kids movie? Like what?
Yeah.
And now you look at the new one, even the trailer, you could tell it's not the same. Like you can tell it looks like CGI, it looks goofy, it looks over the top. Like it didn't need a remake. We didn't need another Witches movie.
And it feels so lazy. Like I was watching it with my girlfriend Cassie, and like there's 3 instances where like they didn't even have to use it, where they smash pieces of wood because she's like the witch, the main witch, the high witch. She smashes like the podium and then the stage that she's standing on, and then the third act she takes like a headpost, like a headboard, and she throws it across the room with like no effort, and it just looks fake. Like nothing in the room reacts to it, and I'm like, I hate CGI. This is so shitty. They probably filmed it in a weekend, got it done in a month, and it's just, ugh. I don't know. I hate modern day horror movies. I think, like I enjoyed Halloween 2018, but I like the Jordan Peele stuff. But like whenever they try to remake something, it just makes me want to watch the original.
I will say though, one of the most underrated horror remakes that like I wish more people enjoyed and watched is Fright Night. I don't know if you ever saw the like remake of Fright Night with Colin Farrell, Anton Yelchin, like the late Anton Yelchin. It's such a unbelievably fun movie. David Tennant's in it as well. It's such a good, well-made horror movie. The joys of having a dog.
That's cool. I think the trick behind it is that if the movie is too big, you can't remake it. Like what was it called? Fright Night? Or
Fright Night, yeah.
Yeah. Like that's not the most iconic horror movie back in the day, so not everybody is like, you fucked it up. And you can probably improve on some little things. If it's really big and it's mainstream enough, it's like just leave it alone. Like you're only gonna fuck it up.
Yeah, like the reason why like a remake like Fright Night works or a remake like The Crazies works is because no one really remembers the original ones. They weren't really remarkable. I mean, I know Fright Night, the original, has a lot of like, it's like a cult fan base.
Right.
Like they picked like, projects that like honestly could use a remake or could use a new set of eyes that can be revamped. Don't like remake classic horror movies or movies that are so perfect already because people are just gonna hate it. And usually most of the time they're just underwhelming.
Or at very least, like just like take pieces of it and make it your own. Call it a different title. Have like a homage to like different things, but I guess that you can't capitalize on the name that way. There's an IP you can't ring on, but yeah. Anyway, man, thank you. How would you rate this movie before we tie it up? How would you rate this? How many potato sacks on your head would you give it out of 10?
Potato sacks out of 10. I would probably give it like a solid 9 potato sacks out of 10.
I would give
it sets out. Yeah, I think it sets out. I think it gets done what it sets out to do. I think it's a really great, simplistic horror movie that doesn't need to do a whole lot to scare you. And I think it's way more affecting and haunting than most horror movies you'll see. And it shows you don't need a massive budget or like huge A-list stars to make a really effective horror movie. And I just wish there were more movies like it.
I would give it probably like a 7.5 sacks. 7 sacks and 1 doll face mask.
Okay, so an 8.
Yeah, almost an 8. Almost an 8. I really did enjoy it. It's just like I guess I've seen better. Maybe I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's hard to like see a lot of classic horror movies or even some of the better like new ones, and then kind of like see something like very like 2080. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Well, that's the thing too. Like if you just watched like John Carpenter's Thing, and then you watch The Strangers, you're like, it makes you lower the barometer a little bit. You're like, well, it's not that good. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that's why I'm going to go with my 7.5.
All right, I can respect that. I can respect.
So where can people find you?
Well, they can find me at youtube.com/Chatalbash reviews. You shouldn't have a problem finding me now because I resolved that issue finally, because I used to have an old channel with just my name. But if you type in Chatalbash reviews on YouTube, you'll be able to find me. You'll see my stupid face and like a reel behind me. So it'll be kind of hard to miss. And you can also find some articles that I write on screenrant.com. And yeah, that's where I am currently.
All right, Tom, I want to thank you for coming on the channel once again. And
No problem.
YouTube's most reliable YouTube critic. I've been John. This has been Tom. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe, like, share, comment, all that fun stuff that people say on YouTube. And we will see you next time.
Have a good one, guys.
All right.